Recollection Road is proud to partner with Legacybox. Get early access to the best deal of the year. Watch until the end of this video to see why Legacybox is the perfect gift this holiday season. And then visit legacybox.com/recollection for an incredible 65% off. Whether it's the tinseled trees, the heartfelt gifts, or just the general kind-hearted and simple spirit of the times, the 1950s was a decade that seemed to capture the true essence of Christmas. The joys of festive traditions like decorating the tree, gathering with family, and maybe even reading a Christmas classic were always much anticipated. Each year, many families would attend local parades where they would be greeted by Santa Claus. Some parades even featured balloons and floats inspired by the Macy's parade. These small-town parades would often kick off the holiday season and build excitement in the minds of kids and adults alike. Choosing the perfect Christmas tree was another tradition that many families made an effort to celebrate. Whether they were cutting down a fresh Scotch pine or selecting a new aluminum tree, adding the decorations was always a highlight. During the 1950s, bubble lights were a popular choice, and once the lights warmed up the liquid, tiny bubbles would be released up the tube, bringing the tree to life. One of the things that changed drastically during the 1950s was consumerism. This was especially true when it came to the Christmas season, with ads flooding newspapers and magazines with the latest gadgets that men, women, and children needed for the holiday. Men were encouraged to spoil their wives with a practical gift that would make their life easier, while women were encouraged to buy men gifts that would help them relax after a hard day at work. For kids, it was all about the latest and greatest toys. Many well-known and must-have toys of the time were first introduced during this decade. Kids went nutty over Silly Putty when the novelty item debuted in 1950. When Hasbro introduced Mr. Potato Head in 1952, kids decorated the face of a real live potato rather than the more familiar plastic one. In 1953, a man named Jack Odell learned that his daughter couldn't bring toys to school unless they were small enough to fit inside a matchbox. Thus, the Matchbox car was born. Play-Doh showed up in 1956. The Frisbee, originally called the Pluto Platter, in 1957. And the hula hoop came in 1958. Dolls were also at the top of many Christmas lists. The Vogue doll company's Ginny dolls took girls by storm during the 1950s. Sweet Sue dolls made by the American Character Doll Company were also popular. But since the 1959 launch of Barbie, the doll world has never been the same. Usually, as Christmas drew closer, families would begin to gather to celebrate together. In those days, most family members lived within a few miles of each other, so large holiday gatherings were expected, with grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins all assembling together. For some families, Christmas Eve wouldn't be the same without a special story reading. After hanging the stockings and putting out a snack for Santa, mothers and fathers across the country might have read the story of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, or the poem The Night Before Christmas, before tucking the kids into bed. The one thing that never changes as the years pass is the sense of wonder that the Christmas holiday brings. If you have your own memories or traditions of Christmas, I would love for you to share them in the comments. In the 1960s, children could hardly wait for the official start of the Christmas season. That was the day the Christmas catalogs arrived in the mailbox. Once they arrived from Sears, JCPenney, and Montgomery Ward, it was open season on circling the toys we hoped Santa would bring. Kids and adults alike eagerly leafed through the pages of the toys, clothing, and other gifts offered within, making their wish list before passing the catalog on to another family member. Some of the popular toys that children wanted to find under the Christmas tree during the 1960s were things like an Etch-a-Sketch, a G.I. Joe doll, a Wham-O Super Ball, or maybe even a Chatty Cathy doll or an Easy Bake Oven. Let's face it, it was a great time to be a kid, and waking up to find one of these toys made for an unforgettable Christmas. This decade offered some of the best Christmas specials to get you into the spirit of the season. Planning ahead to watch them was a must, because they were broadcast one time during the season. Variety shows hosted by Dean Martin, Bing Crosby, and Andy Williams were some of the most entertaining, as the singers gave us a glimpse into their own families while singing some of the most cherished Christmas songs of all time. The 1960s introduced us to many animated shows that would become an annual tradition in homes across America. During the month of December, kids would eagerly listen for announcements on television to find out when the holiday specials would air. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which aired in 1964, is one of the most popular, and the stop-motion presentation makes it a favorite even today. Two animated classics from the mid-1960s, A Charlie Brown Christmas and How the Grinch Stole Christmas, are also among the earliest and most enduring of the Christmas specials developed for television. Within their engaging storylines, these shows carried a message about the growing commercialization of the holiday, and they reminded them that Christmas was about more than just getting presents. What would Christmas time be in the 1960s without the Christmas music heard on the home stereo or over speakers in the department stores? A flood of Christmas albums were released from singers like Andy Williams, Perry Como, Johnny Mathis, Brenda Lee, and Elvis Presley, who all recorded their own versions of old favorites and new holiday hits. Between decorating the Christmas tree and opening presents on Christmas morning, traditions like sending Christmas cards, baking cookies, and taking family photos filled the time leading up to the big day. For many of us, these moments with family are some of the most cherished. Some of the traditions that began in the 1960s are ones you may continue today, because it reminds you of that special time in your life when the magic of Christmas really was magical. It's no surprise that most people view the decade of their childhood as the most memorable when it comes to their Christmas experience, and the 1970s were no different. The 1970s was certainly a transitioning decade that saw Christmas become bigger and bigger. Although kids were still circling the Christmas catalogs each year, They were also now watching more commercials for the hottest toys of the season. Their favorite TV shows were filled with advertisements that helped every kid fill out their Christmas list. During this time, shopping malls were becoming the place to go for all of your holiday shopping needs. Although some shopping still occurred along Main Street, the sheer size and variety of stores were making malls more desirable. Families were still, however, stopping by the downtown department stores to see the Christmas window displays that would entice the window shoppers to come inside. The 1970s also had its fair share of great Christmas music. Perhaps no holiday album was quite as beloved as the Carpenters' Christmas Portrait, filled with the classics, but it also included Karen Carpenter's sweet-sounding Merry Christmas Darling. Later in the decade, the comedy song Grandma Got Ran Over by a Reindeer would become a fun departure from the standard lineup of Christmas music. Television specials and movies were still highly anticipated during the 70s. Rankin and Bass Productions continued into the decade with the release of Santa Claus is Coming to Town and The Year Without Santa Claus. The musical movie Scrooge, starring Albert Finney, was another popular Christmas favorite that came out of the 70s. And who could forget the heartwarming TV movie The Homecoming, which introduced us to the Walton family. Toy companies seriously stepped up their game in the 1970s, producing some truly iconic toys throughout the decade and revolutionizing the industry. From Stretch Armstrong to Pet Rocks to new electronic games like Simon, Speak and Spell, and of course, Pong, the first home video game system that connected to your TV. In 1975, Atari partnered with Sears and released Pong under the Sears Telegames label. The $100 game system was Sears' best-selling item during the 1975 Christmas season. Later, the Atari 2600 would expand on the success of Pong and usher in the era of the video game system with changeable games. Television and movies were a big influence on the best-selling toys of the Christmas season. At the time, there were none bigger than Star Wars, and action figures from the $6 Million Man. The telescopic eye on Steve Austin made it a favorite for kids who loved the television series. To capture all of the memories of the 1970s, many families began to take snapshots on a new Kodak pocket camera. These cameras were small and easy to use, and it made taking photos a part of the Christmas tradition, especially on Christmas morning. The Eastman Kodak Company would use television stars to pitch the new cameras, which were essentially toys for the adults. Christmas in the 1970s was pretty great. The magic of Christmas morning and not believing your eyes at what you found under the tree were some of the best feelings a kid could have. Every decade adds its unique touch to Christmas culture and history. From the classic Christmas music from the 40s and 50s to the aluminum trees of the 1960s. but in terms of sheer volume of enduring pop culture, no decade comes close to the 1980s. Nothing gets you into the Christmas spirit quite like a little Christmas music, and the 1980s had its fair share. Islands in the Stream duo Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers released Once Upon a Christmas in 1984, and also starred in a Christmas special called A Christmas to Remember. Also that year, the charity supergroup Band-Aid gave us Do They Know It's Christmas, which became the biggest selling single ever. And finally, 1987 brought us the first hip-hop Christmas song with Run DMC's Christmas in Hollis. The song was also included in the movie Die Hard, which made it even more popular. The 1980s had so much variety in Christmas music from all genres, making it a unique departure from more traditional songs. In the 80s, the shopping mall was the central hub for all things Christmas. Not only was it brimming with shoppers, but it was also decorated from top to bottom, making it a perfect time to wait in line and sit on Santa Claus's lap. This also gave many parents time to sample selections from Hickory Farms while they waited. The 1980s is when mass hysteria over the must-have toys of the season began. This is also the time when Toys R Us became a retail juggernaut, with many kids trading in the Sears catalog for the Toys R Us Dream Book to pick out the things they wanted from Santa. Let's face it, when we think about Christmas in the 1980s, our minds go to the toys of the time. Who remembers the lines to get a Cabbage Patch Kid? Or maybe the other top toys of the decade, like a Rubik's Cube, Teddy Ruxpin, Transformers, a Nintendo Entertainment System, or even a Big Wheel. All of these things were at the top of every kid's wish list, and it made for an exciting Christmas morning, waiting and wondering if you were going to get that one thing you desperately wanted. The lead up to the big day still saw kids watching the classic animated shows from earlier decades, but many of their favorite shows also began airing Christmas specials. From a He-Man and She-Ra Christmas special to ones from Garfield, Alf, The Muppets, and Pee Wee Herman. There was no lack of options when it came to TV programming. On the big screen, the 1980s continued to contribute to pop culture, with holiday favorites like A Christmas Story, Santa Claus the Movie, Scrooged, and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. These films, along with many more, would lay the groundwork for the many marathons that would become a staple of modern cable television. There were also many memorable TV movies that were quintessential 1980s, including The Night They Saved Christmas, A Smoky Mountain Christmas, and A Very Brady Christmas. From shopping for gifts to spending time at home watching movies, the Christmas season was still about spending time with the ones we loved. The traditions and memories made during this time are what make us yearn for that feeling again. Christmas in the 1980s was a special time, especially if you were a kid who received a Nintendo in 1985. Recollection Road and Legacybox both believe it's important to preserve the past. If you've been looking for that perfect gift, look no further than Legacybox. We all have a box of treasured home movies and photos tucked away somewhere, so why not bring them back to life like I did using Legacybox? Now we can relive those memories as a family every time we get together. The process is a simple and safe solution for converting your home movies and photos to thumb drive or the cloud. Just send in your Legacybox filled with old VHS and camcorder tapes, film reels, and pictures, and get back digital copies that can be easily enjoyed, shared, and kept organized. It's really that easy. Legacybox is trusted by over 1 million people, and it's all done right here in the USA. Give your loved ones the perfect gift this holiday season. Go to legacybox.com/recollection to get an exclusive 65% off. Take advantage of their best deal of the year and send in your memories when you're ready. Go to legacybox.com/recollection to save 65% while supplies last. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything, and make sure to check the description of this video for links to pick up a t-shirt and sign up for the newsletter. Thank you to our loyal Patreon supporters listed here. Visit patreon.com/recollectionroad to join the club.